Welcome to another episode of Out of Spec Dave, where today I've got a special treat. I'm going to be interviewing Branden Flasch, a Your EV Journey video. I've gotten to know Branden over the last couple days. He came down to visit us here at our condo in Florida, and it's been a great time. But today, I'm going to be getting to know Branden and find out a little bit about him and his EV journey. So stick with me, folks, and thanks again for watching another episode of Out of Spec Dave. So Branden, how's it going, my friend?
Doing well. Thank you for having me out here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me for a little chat. We're going to drive up to, I guess, Fort Myers. We got a little bit of a road trip, and I'd love to learn about just sort of you and your EV journey. But tell me a little bit about your truck here.
Yeah, so this is the 2022 Rivian R1T. Took delivery in September 2022. It's now almost January 2023. I've put about 12,000 miles on it now. Driven it all around the country, drove down from Charlotte down here to Florida, and it's Rivian blue, as you can tell. It's an adventure trim, so same essentially as a launch edition, but came after the launch edition. Has a 20-inch all-terrain tires and wheels, and we have the Ocean Coast interior, if it will unlock, because Dave's got my phone there. But you'll see it in the video when we hop in the truck that has the Ocean Coast, and I got it right when they started delivering Ocean
That's the
Coast.
light color interior,
Yeah,
right?
it's the whitish gray.
Okay.
Not quite a white, but not quite a gray either.
And was this the exact spec you wanted?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
that's good.
I almost compromised and got one from the R1 shop when my order was confirmed, and it didn't have a clear date.
Right.
But I'm glad I didn't compromise because this is great.
Right. And just one quick question before we jump in. How's the tonneau cover been treating you?
Working without issue, I'll show you.
Really?
Well, if it will unlock.
All right, I'll just believe you.
Yeah, but it works without issue. It doesn't make the best noises, but it works without issue.
Okay, because I've heard don't use it, or like that's a.
I think it's because I use it a lot that it's fine. I think Kyle has the same logic of just use it, and if it breaks, it breaks.
Right.
But I use it often, and it's fine.
All right, well listen, let's jump in and
Get to it.
And Florida, looking nice today here in
It
Florida,
is
huh?
beautiful.
Oh man. All right, so Branden, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We had a lot of fun last night with your this truck with my wife and my daughter.
I think you guys had more fun than I've ever had.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. Well, we can start off.
Yeah,
on this. It was so funny because Kathy, she's like, yeah, I want to go in the Rivian. Do you think Branden will let me? I was like, yeah, he'll let us. He's like,
I don't care.
We're swapping cars all over the place
Yeah.
here.
I mean, I drove your car to the FSD beta video. That should be out probably before this year.
Yeah. And but listen, what's great is what's so funny about YouTube is I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
Because I watch all of your videos, and I guess you've watched a few of mine.
Yeah. I usually watch about half of them.
And I know you do a lot of different things with Kyle, and you've been on the Out of Spec podcast quite a bit. And but it's fun to finally actually meet you as well in the flesh. So
it's a small world to just like meet and just continue on as if we've known each other for 10 years.
Well, what was funny was the other day I saw you tweet it out and you said, okay, I want to go on a road trip.
Mm-hmm.
Should I go to Canada or should I go to Florida?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I voted Florida, and I called up Kyle and I said, Kyle, tell Branden to come on down, right? Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
And so, and what's great is I do know a little bit about you, but I don't know a lot about you.
You don't know the full background.
I don't know the full background, like, where did you grow up? And, sometimes I talk to people and I ask them about their sort of what I call the EV journey. Like today, you're into EVs, right?
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
big time, right? And but as a kid growing up, Kyle was also into EVs. He was into electric Peg Perego Jeeps and little Volkswagen, those little cars you'd buy at Toys R Us.
The ones you ride on?
Yeah, no, the one you ride on.
Yeah.
And they were powered by electric, and he had
Rudimentary.
Rudimentary. I mean, and no DC fast charging, of course.
AC slow charging.
AC slow charging, but we had a bunch of them in the garage, so he could always keep them. But tell me a little bit about yourself and like where you grew up, and were you always a car guy? Or?
Yeah, I think I've been a car guy since I got my license. I was actually kind of just a big tech person first. And then when I got my driver's license and discovered that driving was fun, I was like, oh, this is my thing, I guess. Had many cars. I've kind of just been a car person more than I've been an EV person. The EV person part has been developed over time.
Right.
And it's kind of a cross section of the tech stuff and the car stuff in one, and they happen to drive really well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had Honda S2000, I had multiple TDIs, which ironically, they're the reason that Electrify America exists.
Jettas or?
Yeah, I had a Jetta Sportwagon TDI and just a Jetta Sedan TDI. So
okay.
Had both of them.
So you were actually part of the Dieselgate thing with
I
that.
actually worked at a Volkswagen dealership during it.
Oh, wow.
It was an interesting time to be around the car business, and I actually sold my Sportwagon TDI back to Volkswagen and made like $5,000 owning it for a year.
Wow.
So it worked out pretty well for me in that regard.
Yeah.
Had a BMW 328i manual rear-wheel drive wagon. That was probably one of my coolest cars, I'd say.
What was your first car that you ever had?
I had an $800 1999 Ford Ranger 4-cylinder manual rear-wheel drive.
Wow. Okay.
I had that thing for 3 months and sold it for $3,000.
That's good.
Yeah. Bought it from a junkyard and then cleaned it up, like did some maintenance on it,
right.
And sold it for a pretty large profit. Then I bought, I think I got my BMW 325xi at that point, an E46.
Okay.
That was a 200,000 mile, $3,000 car.
Wow.
It was an interesting thing. That's kind of what got me into working on cars, because I had no other choice realistically.
So you've worked in the car business for a while.
Yeah, for quite a few years.
And that's been your life, mixing cars and your love of cars with also earning a living around the car industry. What was your first sort of thought about, hey, what is going on with these electric vehicles? Like, when did you start getting curious? Was it an Elon thing that you...
No, not an Elon thing really. So out of high school, I didn't go to college.
Okay.
I worked at Costco and I started seeing a couple Model S's here and there coming in for tires, because I worked in the tire department there.
Where did you go to high school? Where did you grow up?
This was in Minnesota, so like
okay.
suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Okay, so in the wintertime, you would go to the Mall of the Americas for exercise, right?
Yes.
Because, that's the only place you can literally walk around and not
just do
freeze
laps.
to death. Yeah, right, okay. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, but I worked at Costco, started seeing Model S's coming in, started looking into them. I actually first saw Tesla when I was in California, because I had family there, on Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade, when the store was in the old location and before that store even existed. It was a giant coming soon billboard on 3rd Street Promenade with a huge silhouette, like probably 3 times actual size of a Model S.
Right.
And I was like, what the heck is that?
Right.
Right. So I started looking into it. Seemed pretty cool. They were expensive. I think that was still when I was in high school, so
sure.
like no way I could afford one.
Of course not, right.
But I could be interested at least.
Right.
And then out of high school, so after Costco, I went to an independent BMW European auto repair shop, and they had one of the first BMW i3s in the entire state of Minnesota.
Okay.
And they used that as their parts running car, customer shuttle of sorts, and me being the lowest guy in the totem pole, I was the one doing all those parts runs, shuttle runs, whatever.
Was that a BEV or a Rex?
It was a Rex.
It was a Rex,
and
okay.
We put snow tires on in the winter, but it was still a struggle in the winter.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have it coated to hold and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we only had a level 2 at the shop. And it was generally fine, but every once in a while we'd have to do multiple runs back to back or a couple farther runs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bit of a struggle sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if it ran all the way down on the Rex and then it was barely holding I think it's like 5%, 7%, something like that.
Yeah.
And cruising along the interstate. It's struggling a bit.
Great little car though.
Yeah, those are fun.
I love them. I've had a few. I mean, I've really enjoyed them over the years. And, I think with the used car market tanking like it is right now, I'd sort of keep my eye open for a decent low mileage i3 Rex.
I'd probably stay away from the Rex personally.
You know why? The Rex is nice just because it's a little bit of peace of mind. You know, like just because the range on that thing is, unless you get the newer one, the miles or range is, if you're getting 80, 85, that was the most I ever saw. But for a daily around town,
I mean,
great car.
I would just be concerned with the maintenance because those Rex engines are not exactly known for their reliability.
Yeah, I know they've had issues with them, but all right. So you were at the Beamer repair shop for a while, and this was still back in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in Minnesota until like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So most of my life spent in Minnesota. Yeah. Yeah, and then I went to work at a Volkswagen store and was there for a decent while, actually. That was during Dieselgate, so I started getting kind of exposed to EVs a little bit more there.
Right.
And then I realized I wanted to do something else, got into real estate, ironically.
Really?
Yeah, and that's kind of
What, like commercial or residential?
residential.
Residential. So you got your license?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I only just didn't renew it this year.
Okay. All
So
right.
I was licensed for like 4 years.
Interesting.
But then I actually worked at Tesla, so they were hiring for seasonal people. And I went there and stayed, and that's when I kind of got really into the EV world. I had a Chevy Volt at the time, so the plug-in hybrid, not the Bolt with a B. I had the Volt with a V.
Yep. Yep.
Confusing naming. I hate that name.
Yeah.
But they say that you don't have range anxiety with a Volt. You have gas anxiety. Because you don't want the gas engine to kick on, because then it's kind of loud and annoying and buzzy.
Right.
You want to just drive it on electric all the time. So I was just going around plugging in everywhere I possibly could.
Right.
I mean,
So you have one of those personalities, as I've gotten to know you, that is like, you know, if you're gonna get into it, you're getting into it.
I
right?
go all in.
All in, right? I know.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm the same exact way.
But then it was really cold. I think it was probably February of 2019, if I remember correctly. It was just a really cold month, and the Volts have this thing called engine running due to temperature. So just kick on the engine, regardless of if it needed to come on, to run the heat, because it didn't want to run it from the battery, because then you'd have like no range at all on electric.
Right.
But you couldn't override it, even if you were only doing like a 2-mile trip. That didn't matter how much.
So the
energy.
engine was just kicking on no matter what. Okay.
So I was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And I was looking for an EV. I considered the Bolt and a used Model S. But at that time, CCS was not even really an option.
Right.
Electrify America was building out, but it was not anywhere outside of the coasts, I think. I don't recall exactly, but I knew, looking at used Bolts in like California, Arizona and things, I wouldn't have been able to drive back to Minnesota without like multiple level 2 stops.
Right. Right. So we're talking a week to get home, right?
Whereas I've actually done Minnesota to California in my previous Model S straight through like 36 hours.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so then I found a 106,000 mile Model S 70D in Vegas.
Okay.
It was the cheapest one I could find in the entire country.
Right.
It was, I think.
Did that have AP1?
Yeah, it was AP1.
Okay. Cool.
So I was kind of torn. Did I want to go older, lower mileage without AP1, or did I want to go newer AP1 and accept some risk for mileage? And I went for the higher mileage one because I really wanted AP1.
Yeah.
I thought it would be just kind of silly to have a Tesla without autopilot.
Right.
Realistically, Model S's, or at least older Model S's, don't really drive that well. So you kind of want autopilot to keep you in the
back then it was such a novelty, and now what's interesting is AP or autopilot, it's become synonymous with, oh, you have a Tesla?
Yeah.
The first question people ask me is, oh, does it drive itself? Not, is it electric?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They know it's electric.
They know I guess they know it's electric.
Whereas I still get the, is it electric in the Rivian?
Yeah.
All the time. I even
100%.
put a sticker that says 100% electric to hopefully get a few less questions.
Right. You know, it's interesting you do that, because a lot of people like the fact that you don't know that it's electric, because you get some of these angry elves that say, oh, it's electric? Okay, I'm going to, I'm going to throw, tomato juice on your car or something like that.
Yeah.
But, so going with the, it's interesting. I had an early Model S as well. I had a P85 Plus.
And that a few before that as well?
I had others before that as well. I had an X, I had a 60D. It was like $9,000 less than a 75D Model X. And
you could charge it to 100% every day.
You could. It was software limited. It was the same exact battery that was in the 75D. But it was a brutal car from a range standpoint.
Yeah.
I remember Katie, our daughter, was going to school down in Virginia.
Oh, that's...
I went to visit her once with Kathy, and the trip just took forever. I mean, the network back then, it was still super reliable. It was great.
It was just not as many.
I was getting maybe 160 miles and I was stopping, or 150 miles. And then every once, they weren't as ubiquitous as they are now.
They're not every 50 miles.
No, and so you had to really kind of plan it out and think about where you were going to stop. And so we got rid of that just because it wasn't range anxiety.
You weren't wrong, you were early.
It was just a range pain in the ass is what it was. And so But then I don't know, I got into some threes. And have you owned a three before?
I haven't, but I've driven hundreds of them.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the three versus, let's say, an S, just from a drivability standpoint? Because Kyle's got both.
Yeah.
And he likes the three better.
They're very different cars. If I want to just pile on the miles and have like a road trip monster, S all day.
Yeah.
But if I want a daily driver and like rip up canyon roads, absolutely a three.
Yeah.
They're very different cars, and the three is a lot more efficient. Well, maybe not as much anymore. But yeah, I'd probably take a three over an S in most cases, unless it's a new refresh S like what you have.
Yeah, because
those are nice.
I've been looking over your shoulder, and I've noticed you've been looking at a lot of used S or used threes, because they have tanked over the last 2 months. Right?
I'm very much an opportunistic buyer, and when I see $20,000 price drops in like 2 months or less,
what's changed? But basically, the economy's gone to hell. But other than that, the car's still the same.
Yeah, the car's the same. Elon's gotten a little crazy, which like I don't know if I necessarily want to associate myself with. But like the car's good. Maybe I'll get a stupid license plate that says like Elon sucks or something.
Really?
Whatever.
Oh wow.
I don't know if I'll go that bold, but like,
listen, I just think I don't really care the politics.
Yeah.
His personality. They're just amazing cars. And like, you know, you think about it. If you do get a Model 3. And you have this as a beautiful complementary vehicle.
Oh yeah, that's
Rivian,
an
right?
awesome two-car garage.
So when you go on a road trip, if you really, because think about this, you've been had a little bit of an adventurous spirit coming down.
Oh yeah.
You tweeted the other day from Naples, miracles do happen. I was like, what is this tweet? Actually, you were able to charge the EA in Naples.
It's a miracle.
Right?
I plan to not be able to charge at all.
But so I understand your mentality. It's the same as mine, same as Kyle's. We got that adventurous spirit. But there's such a peace of mind to just get in a car.
Yeah.
And just go and not worry about it, right? Yeah. So I for one, I would like to know when, not if, but when you're making that purchase, because I want my input in it. I want it, you know, I'd love to, if you could find a full self-driving car. Yeah. Because those things,
that's pretty appealing.
It's very appealing and very, very entertaining.
Yeah, I like the novelty factor of things, and that is a whole new level of novelty.
Right.
And I'm not willing to spend the $15,000. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'd prefer to not have to pay $200 a month.
I get that.
Right. But if I can find one that it's only adding like, I don't know, $2,000 to $4,000 compared to an otherwise same car.
I think in the used market, it's like, you know, $3,000 to $5,000 extra.
Yeah.
If and that's coming from Tesla.
Yeah.
But you know what? You might be able to find one, let's say off brand. Some dumb dealers
that don't realize it has it.
Yeah. So all right, so you had the 70D.
Yeah, but the other trick, just going back to that, enhanced autopilot, if you get a car with enhanced autopilot, it brings the subscription to $100 a month. Okay. So that's kind of a good middle ground. That like it's a lot cheaper to just
road tripping. I do like the lane changing that enhanced adds. Yeah. You know, that's really a great feature on that car, and it's so clean, the lane changing. But all right, so
back to the 70D.
You had the 70D. How long did you keep that for, and then what did you get?
I think that was actually either the longest I've ever kept a car or second longest. I don't recall the exact amount of time, but I put almost 100,000 miles on that car.
Wow.
In roughly 2 years. Somewhere like that.
And then where were you going that you're driving that many miles? Was this for work? Had you taken a job where you you're just like going on
driving?
Road trips?
Yeah, and I actually did some Lyft driving here and there in Minnesota just because like it had free supercharging and it had already high mileage, so it cost me essentially nothing. On a per mileage basis. And depreciation, I mean tires, I guess, that's about it.
Right.
But then I actually moved to Arizona because I was like, I'm done with this cold in Minnesota. Like, this is stupid.
Right.
So I did a couple trips back and forth between Minnesota and Arizona. So that put on probably 10, 15,000 miles there alone.
Okay.
What else did I do? I also did a bunch of long road trips. So I sold my house like 2 weeks before the entire country locked down essentially for COVID. February 28th of 2020.
Right.
I sold my house and was moving across the country.
Wow.
Talk about coincidental timing there. I only signed a 7-month lease in Arizona, so that worked out pretty well.
Right.
And after that was up, I decided to just travel because Airbnbs were really cheap, hotels were really cheap. I'm like, when am I going to have this opportunity again to just go and travel and see the world. Or,
Right.
well, not the world, the country, I should say. I wanted to see the world. My plan for 2020 was to visit 5 countries. I saw every state in the lower 48 instead.
Right. And is that when you started to really create YouTube videos as well? Okay.
Yeah, so kind of just out of boredom, not really knowing anyone in Arizona, I started just like going and visiting superchargers because I was playing this dumb game of visiting as many superchargers as possible. I'm actually still like in the 20s on ranking of all the people that play that silly game.
Right.
500 plus superchargers. So once I was, or actually I made a video.
Do they keep track? You can actually see how you rank?
It's a manual game. It's not from Tesla. It's an unofficial thing.
I see. I got it.
It's on Tesla Motor Club.
Right.
But yeah, I was visiting stations just because, like, why not? Like, just go drive, explore Arizona. And I actually made a range test video of my car before I decided to do YouTube. I was just like, I'm just gonna make this video. Like, if people watch it, great. If they don't, whatever.
Right.
Actually, no. Before that, I made a road trip video inspired by Kyle of one of my trips between Minnesota and Arizona. I was like, I'm just gonna document this. It was really cold out. It was like -5 when I left Minnesota.
Right.
So I figured, like, why not? I'll make a video. If it's great, if it's terrible, who cares?
Yeah.
Why not? And I had actually done quite a bit of video editing, like, in my younger years, so I wasn't a stranger to just throwing a video together.
You're a tech guy, so you knew computers and right.
I mean, it was certainly nothing special from an editing perspective. I didn't know anything I knew today.
Right.
I used iMovie instead of Final Cut Pro. I mean, the video's still up if you want to check it out. It's way old, probably like scroll all the way back.
Right.
But I made the range test, and those videos actually got a fair amount of views. So I'm like, I guess people want to see this.
Yeah.
People were interested in the high mileage Tesla experience.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Those videos still get views on like a pretty regular basis today even.
There's a lot of curiosity when someone is aware of electric vehicles, but they don't have either a friend that has one, or if they've never been in one.
Or if they just have a lower budget and they're looking, well, there's this one with 100,000 miles. Is that a trap or is that a good idea?
Right. Yep. No, I get that. Yeah. So okay. So you spent time in Arizona.
Yep.
And you put a ton of miles on the 70D, and then what prompted you to get rid of that, and what did you get? Yeah,
so actually just going back quick, so there was a pivotal moment that I decided to do YouTube and actually put in effort. I was going down to a new supercharger in Tacna, Arizona. I was listening to a podcast called How I Built This. Great podcast, by the way.
Okay.
And Guy Raz was interviewing Casey Neistat, and he talked about how he just like started making videos, had no plan, just recorded things, and people started watching it. And Casey Neistat is like the vlogger. He is the king of vlog.
Right.
He created vlog essentially. And I was just like, well, F it. I'm just gonna do this and see what happens.
Right.
It was a very slow growth. I think it took me like a year to get to 1,000 subscribers, get monetized and everything.
Yeah.
But I just kept making videos. I was doing daily uploads for a while just to pound out the content, get as much out as possible. And then actually I met up with Kyle on one of my road trips that I did. I went from Arizona to Minnesota and then made a detour on my way to Florida in North Carolina when Kyle was still living there when he was at the track. Yeah, I think I just messaged him like the day before, like, hey, I'm on a road trip. And he's like, oh, sweet, stop by. And I'm like, and then day later, I'm like, oh, I'm like 20 minutes away.
Yeah,
like,
Kyle's like that. If you're in the area, he's like, yeah, come on by. Right?
Yeah.
You know,
and both of us are like that. So it's really hard to plan anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
But it's also, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right, yeah. No, it's good.
So that was fun. I made a couple videos then. That was another road trip series. Those did pretty well. I think that was kind of what got the channel monetized or helped get it there.
Right.
I was at like 300 subscribers when I first
By the way, I just want to point out, if your pulse is starting to increase a little bit right now, that's because you're within 1 mile of the Naples Electrify America charging station. And I just wanted you to understand there was a correlation there.
Yeah.
If your heart rate is starting to
EA's
increase.
pulse should be going up.
EA's pulse should be going
both
up.
Kyle and I approaching.
Yeah, well, yeah, so Yeah, so that's great. You met Kyle at North Carolina Center for Automotive Research. Really cool track.
Yeah.
We used to call it the Out of Spec track.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun. I would meet him.
It's a cool place.
It is a very cool place, and very much underutilized. And did he take you in the smart car off road?
Yeah, we went like full on off-roading.
Yeah.
We went off a jump even, four wheels in the air.
Oh yeah, I mean like crazy.
Yeah, he did a track review of my old Model S 70D. That was your P85 Plus was there actually at the time.
Okay.
At the track.
We must have swapped cars or something.
Yeah, you must have taken.
Or was I there? Is that possible?
You weren't there. No.
I wasn't there. No.
But I think you had maybe driven down, or no, you tasked Kyle with selling it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds like a good.
So I think I think he flew up and drove it down. Something like that.
Yeah. That sounds like something we would do. Yeah.
That was that. And then, so I had the Model S 70D. It was great. I put almost 100,000 on it. Tons of value out of the free supercharging because I was going everywhere.
Yep.
That was like Tesla's worst nightmare with free supercharging.
Yeah, right.
But that car just didn't charge that well. It was kind of slow charging.
Yeah.
And then my now fiance got a same car because we met while I was traveling a lot. And a friend of mine sent me a car. He was like, do you want to buy this Model S 70D with 180,000 miles on it? I don't know anyone else that would be an easy sell on this, and I don't want to deal with idiots that are going to ask me all the questions.
Right.
He's like, you already know what these are, or like what you're getting into. Do you want it? I'll sell it to you for what I paid for it.
Right.
Because he's just like a broker dealer kind of thing.
Right.
Flips cars, basically.
Uh-huh.
And so she bought it. So we had twin Model S 70Ds traveling the country.
Wow.
And then we decided, as things were getting a little bit back to normal, to settle down in Charlotte. She had family here.
Uh-huh.
And so we sold my car while we were still traveling because it was getting close to 200,000 miles. I'm like, it might be time to sell. Suspension was getting a little like rattly and loud.
Yeah.
It was just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need two cars traveling the country. So we went down to one car. And then we traveled in hers. That was good. And then I actually impulse bought a Porsche Boxster.
Oh, wow.
That was a terrible decision. I have a whole bunch of videos. It broke multiple times. I had to abandon it multiple times across the country.
Was it an S?
Yeah, it was a 2001 Boxster S.
Okay.
Fun car when it was good, but the previous owner put like 4,000 miles on it in like 5 years. I put 3,000 miles on it in 2 weeks.
Right.
So all the things that were on the verge broke.
Happened. Yeah.
So I don't know if it probably would have been fine, but
very balanced car.
Yeah.
From a handling standpoint. I love that mid-engine car. We had a Boxster, but not an S years ago, and it was just a little underpowered.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of fun in the twisties.
Yeah,
you know?
and the S is pretty good.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Just so you know, we're gonna get eventually. You're gonna get on 75.
I've got the nav going here.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so Impulse bought that, and then we settled down in Charlotte. We sold her Model S because we saw the market was going up. We probably should have held it a little bit longer. It could have gotten more.
Right.
But we put 30,000 miles on that car and made a $7,000 profit selling it.
Wow.
So, doesn't suck there.
No, we've just gone through one of the most remarkable,
ridiculous,
insane, opportunistic times to flip cars, right?
Yeah.
If you were smart about it.
It's not logical at all.
It isn't logical. And historically, you know, if you played the used car market and you understood cars, generally speaking, you wouldn't necessarily get hurt. But in this day and age, or I think the era is over of the tax credit games, but I've been, and I think you have as well,
yes,
right? You know, playing the tax credit game and the used car values at the same time. Just one of the most unique hedging opportunities that I've ever come across outside of Wall Street.
Yeah, I mean, you could basically buy a car, get a $7,500 tax credit, enjoy the car for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, sell it for MSRP and still have that tax credit.
Get the state rebate if there is one.
Yeah, I didn't get those.
And if you live in New Jersey, no state sales tax.
Yeah.
So, you know, and just insane how people have played this. But I think the bubble has kind of burst, which is good if you're...
especially January 1st with the income caps and everything, because the people that can afford to do that probably won't qualify for it anymore.
No, absolutely. But, you know, what's good now, I think, is that there are a lot of really, especially in the first part of 2023, there's going to be a lot of opportunistic buying for, you know, used market for relatively inexpensive cars that the economics will start to make some sense.
Yeah, used Model 3s, as we were talking about, are a great example of that.
Used Model 3s in the low 30s right now. So yeah,
I mean, some even in the high 20s, and it's hard to argue the value there.
It is, and they're pretty bulletproof for
Yeah.
the most part. Yeah. So okay, so then you've got.
Yeah. So we sold her car, and then we only had the Boxster S. We had just settled down in Charlotte, and I was starting a job at a Volkswagen dealer. That was a very short stint. I was like, I'm past this dealership life.
Right.
Working to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And having split days off. I'm like, I lasted 2 months there.
Were you in a sales role there? Or?
Service advisor.
Service advisor. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But right when I started there, I was like, oh crap, I need a reliable car, and that was not the Porsche Boxster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, Kaylee couldn't drive the Porsche Boxster because it's a manual.
You can hit it here pretty good. Speed limit's 70.
Oh yeah.
And is Kyle behind us, by the way?
Yeah, he's right behind us.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
Kyle's in Dave's Model S behind us, and then we'll swap cars because he's going off back to Colorado.
Yeah, we're dropping Kyle off at the airport, and yeah, it's been fun having him in town and spending Christmas with us, which has been fantastic. So you're
at an ID4.
Yeah.
Leased it because they were doing a pretty good thing. They just took it off as a cap cost reduction on the lease, $7,500 off.
They took that fully off.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and my net or like adjusted gross income that year would not have supported the tax credit.
Okay.
Just like write-offs and weird income, and it was just a mess. But basically, I wouldn't have gotten the full tax credit, so I was glad that they did it as an instant rebate on the lease.
Right. How's the residual on that? I mean, did it make
I think
sense?
the money factor and the residual were pretty terrible, but I didn't really care because I knew I wasn't going to keep it the entire term anyway.
Right. Okay.
There was no way I was going to have that car for the 39 months I signed up for.
Right. And so exit strategy of a lease, though, typically people get hurt pretty bad if you exit earlier. What happened?
Not in the past market.
That's true.
Yeah, so it was a very weird market. Normally, to get out of a lease early, you pay money.
Right. By the way, what is this guy up here? It says Kelly Roofing, and then it says Tesla.
He probably does Tesla solar roof.
Oh, Tesla solar roofs.
Yeah,
oh,
like
that's what.
Certified
Oh,
installer
okay.
or something.
Because he's in a pickup truck.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Oh yeah, that felt like Aerosmith's Rock and Roller Coaster. When you first start off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a certified installer. There you go.
Yeah, so I got the ID4. Slightly inspired by Kyle's road trip that he did from Florida to Colorado, I think.
Oh yeah, when he took the base.
Yeah, when I think he got the press car down here or something, and then drove back.
Yeah, he was on whatever. He was at just north of Jacksonville. I forget, Amelia Island.
Okay.
Right, and yeah, so.
Oh, he was at the Concours d'Elegance.
Yeah.
And then Volkswagen was there, and he just took the car home.
Yeah, he wanted the base with the 19s just to kind of like check it out.
And that's that was a very successful video for him.
Yeah.
He got like 400,000 views or something crazy.
Yeah, well, listen, the ID4 has, first of all, I think it's a great looking car.
Yeah.
It's
handsome.
It is a great looking car. It's a super comfortable car.
Yeah.
And what color did you get?
I got white. So I bought mine off the lot, and it was white with the it was the gray interior. I forgot what they call it, but it was the light gray interior.
Yeah.
Very similar to this Rivian color, actually.
Yeah.
The interior.
I know the color, right? But was it a Pro with the cloth, or did you?
I got a Pro S gradient.
Okay. Oh, you had a gradient. Okay.
Yeah, because I really wanted the glass roof.
Yeah.
And it was what they had available. I didn't necessarily need the gradient.
Right.
I didn't really care about that. In fact, I probably would have preferred the smaller
it was
wheels.
$1,500 for 20-inch wheels, and
and the silver stripe, basically.
Right. I know.
Not worth it, but if it's there, who cares?
Yeah. I had two rear-wheel drives that had one of the shortest, tightest turning radiuses.
Oh, that thing was awesome.
Great turning
so
radius.
comfortable, so easy to maneuver.
Yeah.
But the 2021 software just kind of sucked.
It yeah, I'll tell you, I've mentioned this in the past, but one of the best features of an electric car, especially when you live in the cold or the hot, any extreme, is being able to preconditioning the cabin. And that thing worked, and I'm not exaggerating, less than 50% of the time.
Oh, probably like less than 25%.
For me, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't even so much the car software that was bad. That was mostly okay.
I don't know
it
what
was
it
the app was
whatever
just
it was.
trash.
I was used to Tesla, where
Yeah.
it just,
I was too. It's a very high
it
bar.
just works, right?
Yeah.
You push the button, it says precondition or whatever.
It tells you the
warm up
interior
cabin,
temperature and the set temperature, and it tells you when it's
and it
clear.
works. And here I am, like, you know,
It like logged you out half the time.
I have this routine in the morning where
Yeah.
I get up, right? I gotta walk Bailey.
Yeah.
So I make a cup of coffee, I precondition the cabin in the
Mhm.
car, I go walk Bailey. By the time I come back in, grab my briefcase,
Yep.
the car's warm, right?
Seems like a
that's
reasonable routine.
And every time I would do that, I would precondition the cabin from the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'd go outside, and the car was still sitting there with like a crust of ice on it, and it was quiet.
Whereas
And-
a Tesla would be completely melted, ready to go.
I hit the defrost or the whatever.
10 minutes later, it's perfect.
I mean, the other morning, on my Model S,
It's like downright hot.
it gets super. It gets warm fast, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really wish. I don't even want to get into Tesla versus CCS versus all these other
That's
cars.
a whole different conversation.
But the thing about the ID.4 is, as a daily driver, if you're charging that on a level 2 at home,
it was freaking great.
and I just love the car so much. Now, granted, I flipped them for the
Yeah.
tax credits, and I did want the
You moved between a bunch of trims and things. You
yeah,
got
no, I
all-wheel
had
drive,
first I had a
rear-wheel
Pro,
drive.
then I had a Pro S Gradient, then I ended up with the difference between the rear wheel drive and the all wheel drive in that car was substantial.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, for example, in an IONIC 5, I felt like the IONIC 5 rear wheel drive,
It was adequate.
it was very good.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't wanting more.
The rear-wheel drive ID.4 is a bit slow.
It
like
was.
almost too slow.
It was so.
But all-wheel drive wasn't available when I got mine.
The worst
or
thing
would've gotten one.
the worst thing I did was I went and drove the all-wheel drive ID.4, and I was like, okay, I gotta have this.
Yeah,
Because it was
Kyle
such-
sent me to the launch of the ID.4 all-wheel drive in Chattanooga
Oh,
to cover for out of spec.
yeah.
And that ruined me too. I was
Yeah.
like,
It just was.
I need to have this
It
now.
was a totally different car, and like I don't really care. Look, I live in Connecticut. It
Yeah.
snows, but you know, you got the 911 effect with the motor over
It's
the rear.
fine.
You put, you know what? It's okay. I don't.
Yeah.
Really care. It's not like I'm going to Vermont every weekend and needing the ground clearance and what have you.
It
But
actually has great ground
yeah,
clearance.
it has decent ground clearance,
Yeah.
but so okay, so you had the ID.4,
Yep.
Pro S Gradient.
Had it for a year, 17,000 miles. I have a whole video outlining my ownership experience.
Yeah,
That's like one
yeah.
of my, actually my most successful video ever.
Okay.
So definitely check that out if you're interested. So I sold it back to the dealer I leased it from. So Volkswagen leases, and I think Audi, maybe Porsche as well, you can't do a third-party sale. So you can't sell it to like Carvana, Vroom, whatever, or they'll pay market price, which they can just determine whatever they want.
Okay.
But if you sell it to a Volkswagen dealer, they pay your buyout price. Because I think the intent is that way, if you want to buy it out, technically the dealer probably has to buy it to then sell it to you as a used car.
Okay.
But they just bought it, and they bought it for, it was $1,200 under MSRP. So I did very well on that. I walked away with a 5-digit check.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Because normally I would think on a lease, you would have to pay out whatever the residual is plus whatever remaining payments
That
there
is
are.
exactly correct.
Right? So
But-
that's never made economic sense to get out of a lease. In fact, I've used Lease Trader before and a couple of others where I've done very well, where I have to find another person to take over who has good credit,
Yeah.
and then they get into the vehicle, and they continue to make the payments, and then it comes off my credit.
But you're exactly correct. That's exactly how a lease buyout works. It's residual plus remaining payments.
Right.
But I had it for a year, so I made a year's worth of payments, so that helped. So I essentially got all of those back.
Did you do a 36-month lease?
39 months.
Oh,
but-
39.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
Which is actually really dumb. Don't do that, because then you have another year of registration.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
Or just,
Well, you know what
or
you
just
can
don't
do?
renew it those 3 months.
You can do the 36, and you can extend most leases out by 6 months
If you need
choose
to, yeah.
If you need to, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got out of that.
But also the $7,500 rebate of sorts off the top, that helped as well.
Right,
So that
sure.
essentially, I paid way more than I actually paid.
Well, you
as
look
far as
you look
the cap cost,
holistically
yeah.
at the transaction, and at the end of the day, you ended up making a profit on a lease.
I don't know if I necessarily directly profited, but it cost me essentially zero.
Okay, so you had a free car.
Yeah,
That's
I
beautiful.
drove a car for 17,000
That's-
miles for
that's-
free-ish.
Right, and I would say that's a unique time.
That's a
in
win
history.
in my book.
100% win, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, so now you don't have your ID4. What now?
So I had the Rivian ordered, the one we're in now. I ordered that in February 2021. So that was way back when I still had my Model S 70D. And the Rivian was supposed to come in, I think it was originally April to June 2022. So, yeah, something like that. So my plan was to have the ID4 until the Rivian came in. But then I got tired of the ID4 and the lack of software updates.
Yeah.
Just the general BS that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
So I then sold it because I got better offer than I could have asked for, essentially.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll figure it out, I guess.
Right.
I don't remember what I was actually planning. Oh, I was planning to get an IONIC 5 or an EV6.
Okay.
And I called over 150 dealers. Couldn't find one at MSRP. I refused to pay a penny over MSRP.
Yeah.
Like, doing these kinds of deals, you can't pay over MSRP or it ruins everything.
Yeah.
So gave up on that. Ended up finding a Polestar in stock at my local Polestar space.
Oh,
in
that's
Charlotte.
right. I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in. They had 4 of them available. They had one in black, which I would never buy a black car unless it was a temporary car like this was planned to be.
Right.
And it was basically just I'll get a car and get this till the Rivian, collect a tax credit,
Plus
get
make
some
some
YouTube
new
videos.
content,
Yeah.
right? Make content.
Like,
yeah.
there's no downside to this here. Worst case, I sell it for MSRP minus tax credit and I come out even.
Right.
Which
Right.
I figured that was pretty unlikely to happen anyway, and I ended up actually selling it for over MSRP. But my Rivian timeline got shifted out to, it was originally October, November of this year, so like last month. But then it ended up coming in September, so it came early.
Okay.
So I probably wouldn't have done the the ID4 to Polestar swap if I had known.
that, right.
Yeah, I would have just toughed it out for another month or two, whatever. But then I ended up selling the Polestar to a dealer in Chicago. They paid me $400 more than MSRP. So North Carolina has a 3% tax, so I made out pretty decently when you factor in the tax credit there. And they still actually have it for sale now, like 3 months later, and it's now $6,000 less than I paid for it.
Oh boy.
Or less than they paid me for it. So that's just a sign of how much the market has shifted.
Yeah.
But I think I timed it really well with getting the Rivian, because this is what I view as my, I don't want to say forever car, but this is a long-ish term car for me.
Right.
I have time committed to the purchase of this car more than anything else.
Well, I saw in your video you waited something like 580 days.
Yeah, it was like 18 months roughly. February 2021 to September 2022.
Yeah. And so how many miles do you have on it now?
Let's see here. Got 11,000, almost 600.
Okay.
So by the time I get back home, it'll be probably 12,500.
Right.
13,000, somewhere in there.
Right. Yep.
And this thing's awesome.
Yeah, this is a great truck. Really amazing vehicle.
Your whole family liked it?
Yeah, we
check
all
out that video if you haven't.
Yeah.
The whole family reviewed it. They call it the worst review, but I think that's up for debate. I think it's one of the best reviews.
Well, it's funny. I said to Kyle, I need a title. Because he's like, bang, titles, right? Really, and it's like, I do everything. I edit my own videos. I've learned how to do it. But the one thing
you just haven't played that game yet.
I'm just like bad with titles. I don't know why. So he goes, all right. He watched the first like 5 minutes of the video. He goes, this is the world's worst review of a Rivian or so whatever.
But it's so entertaining, but it's a terrible review.
Honestly, like from the moment Katie and Allie and Kathy sat down in your truck and just saw your candy,
just chaos.
and you're just like eating candy, and then the guy breaking the glass on the street on 5th Avenue in Naples, which is like the most bizarre. So Brandon, tell me a little bit about what you're doing now. I know that you mentioned you're working for Circle K, and I know them as having really good hot dogs in Europe. So
from Bjorn?
I know that from Bjorn, and I know that from Kyle too. He's like, he over it.
Well, the other half of that you're forgetting is that the reason you know that Bjorn likes Circle K hot dogs is because Circle K has chargers in Europe.
Yes, they do have chargers in Europe.
So there's 1,000 ports in Europe on Circle K sites, and we're essentially just bringing that over to North America. And I'm heading up all the technical aspects and site design, essentially.
Wow.
So it's a big undertaking, I would say, for all of North America.
So
US
how many
and Canada.
Circle K convenience store / gas stations are there in the United States today?
In the U.S., about 7,000. North America as a whole, about 10,000.
And how many of those today have electric vehicle charging?
Not enough.
You're not going to tell me the number.
It's low.
It's
I don't
low.
want to say it.
So
There's a lot in progress.
So there's a lot of opportunity.
Yes.
You're in a high growth business right
Very.
now. And what's your biggest challenge with the role that you're in right now?
I would say dealing with all the outside parties. So that could be the AHJ, so authorities having jurisdiction. So whoever has to issue the permits. So that could be city, county, not HOA, but like architectural review boards in some cases.
Right.
It could be states, just all sorts of bureaucracy, red tape, essentially.
Right.
And then also utilities. So sometimes it's not hard necessarily, but it can just be very slow.
I see. But what about, okay, so you need to buy hardware equipment, the chargers, the dispensers, all of the different, whatever it goes into one of these charging stations.
Yeah.
And so, look, I'm good at buying things, right? But that's a very difficult sale, right? Because I would imagine everybody's got the best unit. They're all calling you up, probably trying to wine and dine you.
Oh,
right?
I grill them all.
I'm sure you do, right?
And,
Which is
and
great.
I think I've developed a reputation of sorts through other posts that they know they can't BS as much as me.
Of course, and they shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Your job is, so what is your number one priority when you're purchasing a unit from, or a series of units? Is it speed? Is it reliability? What, like, how do you make that decision?
Reliability, I would say, is number one.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter how reliable it is if it's not going to meet customer expectations.
Right.
So it has to also give the power. So you do have some level of balance between the reliability and the capability because the higher power stuff just isn't that developed yet.
Right.
But I mean, I try to do my best and cut out anything that can fail and keep it as simple as possible. And I'm of the mindset, let's get things in the ground. And if we need to optimize or improve things over time, that can happen.
Right. We're going to get off, I think, this next exit.
Yeah.
So. Now, is it all CCS that you're putting in?
So some of the first sites will have one CHAdeMO, but we've decided to go with all CCS going forward.
And what about NACS? What's your feeling on that?
We'll see what the market says.
Okay. So you know, sometimes when I see these EV goes, and they have a CHAdeMO, they have a Tesla NACS dispenser, and they have a CCS.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Because, like, for example, if I've got a Tesla and I could pull up to a Circle K without having an adapter, I'd be able to plug in directly. Or do you think that the Combo 1 adapter is just covering that market?
So the tricky part, so the way EVgo does it, they're actually basically just putting a CHAdeMO adapter in a box with a long cable. That's how they're doing Tesla cables.
Okay.
It's not direct Tesla or anything like that.
I see. You're going to go to the left here. Yeah.
But actually, to do true NACS cable, NACS, it actually speaks CCS, and that won't speak to every vehicle, every Tesla, which is a challenge. It's only the CCS-enabled ones.
I see.
So we'll see what the market says.
Whereas you could have, since a CHAdeMO adapter in the background with an NACS cable or you know, plug at the end of it, that's going to plug it. That's going to charge any Tesla, even
but
if
only at 125 amps or roughly 40 to 50 kilowatts.
50 kilowatts max. Yeah. Right. I get it.
So that's a pretty poor customer experience, and Tesla drivers deserve better.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves better charging than that.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've had a couple of interesting days here.
Yeah.
During your visit.
It's been fun.
With the you know, the challenge of the you know, the state of charge, if you will.
The state of charging.
State of charging.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that it's really critical that you're out there living and breathing what
Everyone
the reality
in this business
is,
needs to be doing this.
right? And so for you to be in your position, I just want to commend you for not just doing this from behind a desk somewhere. You're getting out on the road.
Yeah.
You're talking to people who are, you know, you can see it in their eyes. Like, you know, the other day, these people, they needed to get somewhere with their families, right? This is their fuel.
You can see the look of despair when you tell someone, oh, that station's broken.
Yeah, so when you're buying these units, that's what you have to convey. And you know, you got to be careful with sales guys. I'm a sales guy, right?
Oh, they'll tell you whatever they want.
They'll tell you
whatever you want to hear.
And their job is to do that. And they may say on paper, here's what it is proposed to do. So look, I think you got a tough job. You know, I think
it's not easy.
I wish you the best of luck with your role at Circle K. I think you've got a fascinating sort of history and your road to living and breathing EVs and all of that. And Brandon, I want to thank you so much. It's been great getting to know you,
Absolutely.
you know, in person.
Yeah.
And you know, and yesterday going over to Miami with that EV Go, you know, with that whatever they call it, that well, I still can't.
Auto Charge Plus.
Thank you, Auto Charge Plus. You know, now that I'm set up, I'm happy that I have that. Right,
Yeah.
It's an extra thing that I don't have to worry about. But listen, I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
I know you've got a lot more miles to cover before you end up going back to Charlotte. Who knows where that's going to lead you?
Yeah, probably Key West at some point, and then
go down to Key West. Yep, up to Miami or what have you. But thanks again for you know, coming on the channel, and thank you everyone for joining another episode of Out of Spec Dave. And we'll be sure to catch you on the next one. Okay, bye bye now.
Bye.
Take care.